officer. All right, here we go.
Remember? Okay, stand by. Three, two, one. We're live.
We're live.
Hello and welcome to WACA's live election coverage. We have a distinguished panel here tonight to discuss the results and some of the issues that candidates wrestled with during this election cycle. We have Peter Chisholm, Terry Hendricks, and of course John Featherston, and I'm Makita Keegan.
Well, good evening, Makita. Thanks for doing this tonight with us. Thanks for joining the All Politics Local crew. It's nice to have you with us.
It's wonderful to be here, John. Thank you so much for inviting me.
You know, we could probably have a permanent position for her.
It would be a quality.
Yeah. Upgrade, do an upgrade.
Well, it's the most important day in Ashland, Election Day. Most important thing that can happen is to vote in your local election. Let's talk about turnout as of 7:30 tonight.
It's embarrassing.
Okay, the Peter's first shot of the night has been fired, and I agree.
Yeah, the turnout as of 7 o'clock this evening was roughly 10%. And that means 90% of you stayed home tonight. And we don't want to hear from you complaining about anything. If you don't vote, you can't complain as far as I'm concerned.
Well, but guess what happened last year? We only had 221 in the whole day, and we'd reached 274 at 11 a.m. this morning. So it's a vast improvement from last year. And, you know, but there have been years where we've had much better turnout, and maybe that's because the only real contest were the Board of Selectmen. I suppose if we had had some more candidates in there, we'd have gotten a few more, but maybe not, because this is not an, you know, extraordinary large amount, or, you know, this is kind of typical. We get 10 to 12% of the people come out, and then of course I think we probably have about 60 or 70% complain. So, so that means we got about 50% of those people that are complaining don't have a right to complain anymore. Don't show up to vote. I'm sorry, can't complain. Go home.
Well, you know, Terry, it's great that there's been improvement, but, you know, I have to echo Peter's sentiment. I mean, you know, you get the government that you show up for, you get the government that you deserve. And if you don't show up for local elections, you know, it's kind of hard to legitimately complain about what's going on in town if you don't participate at the most basic way possible. I will say, Terry, that, you know, I think more excitement is usually generated when you have more contested races.
I agree.
So, you know, and I think the problem, you know, is it's not just about voter turnout, but it's also about participation in town. You know, we've got how many races were uncontested?
Well,
You know,
almost
so-
all of them.
Pretty much, you know. So, you know, I think it's two sides of a coin. You know, I think, you know, people need to get personally more involved and step up to serve in local government, and they need to vote. And that's just my 2 cents.
I agree.
And I agree with exactly what you're saying. And the mantra of all politics is local, the reason why we started that show 6-7 years ago, is because the decisions that are made at this table on a daily, weekly basis have far more ramifications on anybody's lives than any state or federal election is going to have. It affects your child's education, it affects your roads, it affects the character of your town that you're raising your family in, it affects the small business owners in this town. And when I see this, and yes, you have to look at it as the glass is half full, maybe we're going to be at 12, 13% for a turnout.
13 would be high.
To Peter's point, you know, where's the rest of you? Where's the 87%? And, you know, and then you can't complain. And if your water bill goes up, well, then, you know, you should have voted. If your trash fee goes up, you should have voted. I'm not saying that, you know, you can't, those won't get raised and everything like that. But, you know, we've got a current selectman in the audience and a former selectman in the audience, Mr. John Kerwin and Joe Mignani. I'd love to have them come up and maybe join us for a couple minutes and talk about, you know, what their perspective is. You know, lock and loaded, Mr. Kerwin, you know, probably have to put our seatbelts on, but it's nice to have Joe Mignani, the current vice chair of the Board of Selectmen. Thanks, Joe. Thanks for everything you do for the community. Joe is, what are you, into your almost a year of retirement from the police department?
2 years.
Has it been that long?
Yeah, it has been that long. It'll be 2 years, July 12th.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what do you think? 12% of the,
Well, I have to agree with the entire panel here that it's very discouraging. And a lot of time and effort's put in by a lot of people that volunteer their time to do the things that need to be done. And to get only 11%, if we get that, I mean, at 4 o'clock there was 657 votes. cast at 4 o'clock, so.
That's almost as many committees as we have in town.
Almost, and I think you were on all of them at one time.
No, no, oh, God, no.
No, but in all seriousness, it's sad. It's a sad state of affairs, but this is not something new to Ashland.
No.
And it's not something new to other towns as well.
That's a very
It's
good
the
point.
same.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that we end up having to deal with what the state provides us, well, doesn't provide us, and we have the shortfall, and we have to make those decisions, like you said, they're serious decisions. And, thank goodness that we have a liaison group and a tri-board group that meet monthly to make some of those decisions and work together so that we can come up with, other alternatives to make things a little easier for the taxpayers that have to, brunt the burden. And we're all taxpayers, so,
One way or another.
Yeah,
one way or another.
I think the highest election turnout I can remember was about 3,600 people showed up, and we had a ballot question. We had a
Is that
couple.
the override?
That was the year I retired from the board. It was 2007. We had a couple of contestants. We had a bunch of contested races that year, and but it points to a lot of things. One is historically we've had about 10 or 11% at town elections going back to at least back to 1998. I remember when I first ran, I think we had about 9 or 10% of the folks vote. But, it comes down to engagement, and I think you're seeing that not only in Ashland, you're seeing that throughout Metro West. It just comes down to these elections don't get a lot of press. There's no radio ads. There's just not a lot of things flying around about, especially when you have a lot of non-contested races. We had 2 contested races today, right? 2.
Yeah.
And there was a
Well,
write-in
actually,
candidate for
3,
planning
there was
board.
a write-in and planning board.
But, I don't think anybody even knew. So
Well,
it's,
I don't know. I know I received 2 robocalls yesterday asking me to vote. One of them was from Mr. Williams, who asked me to vote for him. Okay, and I don't know, did you send it out to everybody in town, or?
it comes down to engagement. I mean, it comes down to
Well,
it comes down to engagement.
we'll
We
find
have a
out in
lot-
about 45 minutes.
We have a lot of folks that work out of town,
Yeah.
commuting, and it's just, it's easy to, you can easily forget a town election. It can easily happen.
I'm glad you brought that up because, I think we're all dismayed about the turnout, but, what I'm thinking is, what can be done to improve? What ideas would, for those of us who are active, who are familiar with the issues, who participate in town election politics, how do we get more people involved in the process?
I'd like to answer that, because if you drive around town, which I used to do before I retired, we had sign postings, the electronic signs, elections on this date,
Yep.
please vote. I mean, there's so many things that you can do, and it's just up to the people to get them there. And, but everyone's life is busy. Just for a prime example, this afternoon, I was at a function in Framingham, and there was 7 residents that I said, today's election day. They forgot all about it. Because their lives are so full with the things that they need to do for their families that they forgot completely about it. And they said, thank you for reminding us. And off they went. They left what they were doing and they went to go vote. And that's a possibility. I'm not saying that's everybody. There are some people who just don't want to get involved. But those are the louder, those are the ones that cry the loudest.
Well, plus the fact is, get more people involved, you need something to happen. And, we haven't really had a lot happen. I mean, and I think the way that this town has evolved, we went from having, when I was on the board, we probably had about 40 committees. Now we got, I don't know how many committees we have. We've got to have about 200 committees. And it just a lot of different moving parts, a lot of committees seem to be doing the same thing. There's 4 or 5 committees all doing, visioning at the same time. There's just so much confusion. People are just like checking out. You know what?
Well, aren't you on the comprehensive plan committee?
We are.
Well,
I am.
got them back. There can only be 10 committees.
Put
it in the charter.
One thing that I see,
Don't get me started.
and, it goes back to the all politics is local theme again, is that, I've worked on national presidential campaigns, United States Senator campaigns, governor campaigns, and local elections. And what's different? And
Advertising.
It's the advertising and it's the bright lights,
Yeah.
Sure.
you know, I can speak from experience, you know, Charlie Baker was a one-term selectman from Swampscott, and his words, you know, wasn't all that engaged because he was running Harvard Pilgrim at the time and everything like that. But that selectman candidate that the local people in Swampscott saw the potential in is now our governor and the most popular politician in America right now. Something will happen and that'll change, but, you know, Karen Polito started out as a selectman. She's now our lieutenant governor.
And she was a state rep for a couple of terms, 3 terms, I think.
State rep, I mean,
Longer than that.
let's just even look at on the local level, Tom Sanacandro and Karen Spilka, they both came from the school committee, they got involved. And Karen Spilka is, you know, I have utmost respect for Karen. I don't always agree with her politically, but I have the utmost respect for her. She is one of the most powerful politicians in the state of Massachusetts.
And
Definitely
possibly one of the more
most,
competent.
I was about to say.
And absolutely one of the most competent
Dynamic
and
comes
most
to mind,
respected
yeah.
people. And she started out on the school committee. And speaking of the school committee, we have a candidate for school committee sitting in the audience, Mark Terry. Mark, why don't you come up and join us for a couple minutes
Winning candidate.
and tell us about your day? Yeah, we've got our first winner.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thanks for joining us, Mark.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Tell us about the campaign and your day and how you're feeling.
Well, I spent a lot of time over at the high school today.
Good.
Dodged the heavy rain, I will admit to that, but it was good. You know, it's affirming to see people coming in that are supporting you, supporting other candidates, getting out to participate. You know, you're talking about the people who didn't, but I think you also have to recognize the people that did. And I think it's great that people do make that choice and have enough of an interest to step up and just take a few minutes out of their day to come by and vote. So, good time, good chance to talk to some of the other candidates and talk about this, that, the other things, some town politics, some other things too. So,
I think that it was worth noting that Mark, even though he was unopposed, campaigned. He
Very
signed around
aggressively.
town,
Yeah.
Yes.
talked to people. He just didn't say, well, I think I'll just stay home. He's interested enough in government and
you know,
the town to
Yeah,
wanna-
and the school committee's going through a lot of
Campaign.
transition. It's gonna be, 3 new members?
2 new members.
2 new
Yeah,
members,
Kathy
2 new
Bates
members,
running for
that's
re-election.
40% of the board turning over. And that's a lot. I mean, when I first came in, it was 40% of the board turning over. So there's a lot to learn, and the school committee has made some serious strides over the last few years.
The school committee's
School
been very
committee, school,
impressive the last
school
2
committee
years.
has been a really good and solid board over the last, 4 or 5 years anyway. And, so you got big shoes to fill.
Believe me, I have been most impressed in talking with Marsha Rennie in particular because I'm technically taking her seat. Feels that way anyway.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, if I
she's
can-
been there for, what,
9
4
years.
terms?
9 years, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not her seat, it's Ashland's seat.
Understood. But it's certainly big shoes to fill.
Massachusetts Miracle works its way back in, yeah, I like it.
But it really is an honor to follow in her footsteps. You know, I've gotten to know Marsha a little bit over the last few months. Didn't really know her before that, and I've heard one consistent theme about her service, and that is, you know, it was always for the kids. Whether you agreed with her or disagreed with her, it was always for the kids, and I think that's ultimately what a school committee needs to be there for. You know, we're there to support the education of our children, and I look forward to spending the next 3 years trying to do that.
Well, you know, I got to say kudos to you because I've known you personally for a couple of years, and I know how actively you've been involved. And as John is a former selectman, myself, and Joe is a current selectman, I got to tell you, you know, I have the utmost respect for anybody that's on the school committee because, you know, the Board of Selectmen gets, you know, more of the newspaper stuff, but you do more of the hard, you know, heavy lifting in the community. So I just have to know, you know, you didn't wake up just one day and say, hey, listen, I'm going to run for school committee. Why don't you tell the public a little bit about the thought process and what motivated you and got you to this point?
You know, I think there are a lot of pieces to that, John. I really first thought about it about 3 years ago. I knew Marsha was debating whether to run again. Somebody approached me and said, "Are you interested?" And I thought, first reaction was, yeah, you know. But at the time, I was chairing 2 nonprofit boards, Leadership Metro West and the Metro West Chamber of Commerce, and I couldn't see any way that I could put a third thing into that. So I really had almost decided at that point, when those other commitments had run their course, and I'm rotating off one of those boards next month, that would be the time. So it is a decision I kind of made a while ago, but I think there are a lot of factors in it. One is I've got 2 kids, you know, that are younger and in the system. I have a 7-year-old who's just finishing 1st grade, and soon to be 9-year-old who's going to be finishing up 3rd. So, you know, obviously that plays a part. Any parent wants the best for their kids, and that's, you know, a big draw for this. The other part is really a commitment to community service. You guys were talking about politics being local, and one thing that I really am trying to come to this role with is an attitude of community service. I may live to regret this, but I don't have aspirations for any other role. This is something I really am passionate about. It's what I want to do. And so the commitment to community service, which really came out of my participation in the Leadership Match West program about 10 years ago, is a big driving part. And then the other part is really my professional experience. So as you know, John, and some others might too, I'm a labor and employment education attorney. I represent municipalities and school committees, as well as some private entities as well. But I've got a sense of experience. I have a good sense of the issues that school committees deal with to really be able to contribute, I think, that knowledge and experience to the school committee and the town, and hopefully move it forward.
If I can add something, I served with Mark on the Public Policy Board of the Metro West Chamber of Commerce, and with you too, Peter.
I know. It was a long time ago.
That was quite a while ago, yeah. And I'll say that, Mark has shown a passion to get done what's right. He was doing that. He was doing that as part of the Public Policy Committee over there, even transitioning from presidents from Ted over to Bonnie. It was, he did a really good job over there. So, he's like I said, he's got big shoes to fill, but I think he's got the right size foot for it.
I remember when you and I ran into each other at an MMA conference. It had to have been 6-7 years ago. And
Yeah, it was a while
we
back.
had lunch at the top of the hub, and
That's right.
that was
The Ashland
I've
contingent.
been very impressed ever since. But Peter, you had a point.
Yeah, no, we appreciate you coming by, as well as our current selectmen and former selectmen too. But I don't know what time the results will be in. But I just wanted to address something, on behalf of the fire department. The town meeting this year approved 2 new firefighters for the town, and we have a grant request in for 2 others, which we hope will get. We really don't know yet if they'll be funded or not. It's a federal grant. But I know that Chief Boothby was very appreciative of that. And I think it's important that, he came in January and was able to, the work he was able to put in a lot of long hours to generate, information showing the need for the additional help. And fortunately, town manager and the finance committee, Board of Selectmen, others agreed, and they put it before town meeting where it was adopted. And on behalf of the fire department, I know we want to thank the town for that.
Well, I mean, Joe, you can probably add a little perspective to that. It's kind of mind-boggling that the way the town has grown, and we hadn't added a member to the red team in 20-something years?
20, at least. And there were some other issues that went along with
Sure,
that. But,
absolutely.
we won't talk about people who are no longer there, but
Right.
at the same token, there were a lot of hurdles that needed to get addressed, and I know the current administration has done that, and Chief Boothby has, opened up the doors and lines of communication for that process to happen. And hopefully, with the other federal grant, that if it comes through, we're looking at another 2. I had conversation today with the town manager and with Chief Boothby earlier this morning with respect to about, where do we sit with respect to the 2 new positions? And would it be a good idea to start now looking and asking, people for candidates to come out? Because it's a long process. And if you take your time and do it right, you have to do the background check, which is the longest part of the whole process of interviewing and getting good candidates for fire service. You're looking at another 6 months down the road. So, I mean, this is, May, maybe sometime September, November.
At the early.
And that's if they start now.
That's training.
So, so that process needs to begin early, and hopefully, the things that need to be addressed will be addressed, and those hurdles will be, resolved, and they can start that process.
Well, Chief Key just retired, and Scott is filling his shoes, but not permanent, that's temporary, isn't it? Or has he been appointed chief?
I can't answer that yet, because I can't answer for what the town manager's gonna do, because that's his purview.
So he's still, but.
As of right now, he's an acting chief.
He's an interim chief.
Right, he's an interim chief. Where we didn't go through the regionalization process, we think that that's gonna change that around sooner than later. So hopefully, the interim will be dropped and he'll just be Chief Boothby, which I hope happens, because Scott is a hardworking individual, and he has a lot of information to help the current department.
Actually, didn't he win the race over in Sherburne to be their fire chief?
He did.
Couple of years
He was nominated, he was elected to get the position, but there, I guess, contract negotiations broke down, so.
Yeah, and there's no place like home.
That's right, absolutely. So we're glad that he stayed.
So is there another potential position that would be open? You know, Bill Key retired, you know, Scott or somebody, you know, is there, if you don't bring somebody in, is there another?
There was
in other words,
movement
is there a
within the
third?
ranks. There was movements within the ranks. I know that,
But wouldn't that create, well, with Bill leaving, that really create 3 positions, 2 new and a replacement?
Well, they, what they did was to promote it, after Scott became acting chief, Lieutenant Roby
Right.
became, was
Yeah.
promoted to captain as an operations officer, which was the position.
I assume
Scott had.
temporarily.
Um,
Well, how can he be appointed if,
I'm
what
not-
happens if,
Yeah, I'm not sure how it was,
Scott's
I don't know
not
if it was a temporary
chosen.
appointment or, permanent.
this was, again, this all had to do with the regionalization aspect of it, and that's now, it's a moot point. It's not gonna happen.
And Matty Boland was appointed lieutenant, and they also hired a new firefighter.
okay, so there's,
Right, so there was that one that,
okay.
Well, we're coming up on about 8:25, so hopefully in the next 15 minutes or so, we should be getting some election results. One quick thing that I wanted to point out, 2 gentlemen at this table just were recognized by the governor of the state of Massachusetts for their service to the town. John for his 9 years on the Board of Selectmen, and Terry's accolades in town as a water and sewer commissioner and
Wow,
chairman
that's-
of the Republican Town Committee. You guys were recipients of citations from the
You really
Lieutenant
must have
Governor.
dug that one up from a long time ago.
Well, I
The
did.
last- That was the last water and sewer commission.
that's what
And that was
friends
about
do.
25 years ago.
But I just thought it was important,
held
and, you
that
know,
position.
want
I
to
did.
talk for 2 minutes about, you know, Governor Baker's citation.
Yeah, it was a real surprise. I mean, 9 years on the Board of Selectmen from '98 to 2007, and, you know, the board has, they have I guess they have a new custom now of honoring people as they go out, and they didn't have that when I left. Or maybe they had it before, it stopped, and then started all over again, so I was never honored by the town. So it was kind of nice to see that the governor would recognize the length of service that, you know, it was 9 years, a lot of fights with the school committee, but they were good fights. Fights with the finance committee.
Take it on me, John.
No, I don't think I
He's the new guy.
no. No, those fights have seemed to have stopped, but.
And that's nice to see, isn't it?
yeah,
It's real nice to see
the
that the town's working
conversations.
together.
Yeah.
the conversations.
Yeah, I can remember fights almost coming to blows, he said. But it was a nice surprise to get that from the governor, it really was.
Well, good. I thought
We
that-
actually had a governor at Framingham State University
Yes.
about 2 weeks ago when our president was inaugurated. He administered the oath of office to him, and I know he really enjoyed the trip. He, I had a chance to talk to him beforehand, before the event, while he was waiting to be introduced, and I was surprised of his knowledge about the university. Because of the nature of the trip, I'm sure that they didn't do much preparation about the university
Right.
background, but he was, you know, we talked about some issues, and he was well aware of it. Also, the budget that he filed was strong for the university and higher ed in general. I know a lot of people were very surprised, and of course, like any other process, you know, you get your beginning budget, you go to the House, and they've increased it a bit, and the Senate has also increased it a bit. So we'll wait and see what the final budget is when it goes to the governor in the next couple of months.
You know, you bring up, you want to comment on your citation from the
Well,
governor? real quick?
it was a huge surprise. John just handed it to me at, what meeting? I think it was
Town meeting.
one of our, yeah, and it's like,
I ran into this guy today. He wanted me to give this to
Yeah.
you.
so it was a surprise, certainly. I think he probably had a little bit to do with that, actually probably a lot.
The truth will never be known.
I think Terry hit the nail on the head. It was nice to have somebody hand it to you out of a briefcase and rather than making a big presentation out of
I
it.
think you
Yeah.
have, I think your results are.
Hey!
Hey,
Here we go.
I only have one ring,
You only have one? 2 races?
just the moderator. What's the handout?
who won the moderator's race?
Blanks?
Tara, would you mind going to the podium so the listening audience can see your smiley face?
I didn't make enough copies because I was only trying to do one.
Whoa.
Oh, I got it.
Carol, what was the final
did end
count
up
on,
with
on
Hold on a second.
voters?
So we don't have final results on all races, just,
They're downstairs. I have them right now. They're downstairs, but I knew you guys were looking for the selectmen's race right now. Not that the other races aren't important, but I knew that the
Okay.
selectmen's race
Yeah.
was important.
All right, just for the viewing audience who doesn't know, our wonderful town clerk, Tara. Tara
Award.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. Okay, so I just read off the moderator race and the selectmen, both races for the Board of Selectmen. So I'll read those off for you. For the moderator, there were 282 blanks total. Adam Schuster got 896. There were 28 write-ins for a total of 1206. As you can imagine, there's a lot of folks that are still, over there trying to do all the write-ins. So it's going to take us a while to get the other information up to you, okay? So selectmen 3 years, let me get right to it. Total blanks, 471. Yolanda Greaves, 691. Robert Shearer, 792. Paul Shastany, 453. And 5 write-ins. So you have Robert Shearer who got the most, followed right by Yolanda Greaves. Okay? So then the next one for the selectmen for the unexpired term, you have 87 blanks. Carl Hackinson got 709, and Philip Williams got 409. There was 1 write-in for a total of 1,206. So that's what I have so far. I apologize, Mark, I didn't
All
get
right.
you. But I knew you guys would, at least you could talk about that, I'll give you these. And
So 1206 was the total tally then, is that?
1206 was,
1206
total
is total vote.
Roughly
total
12%.
Voters.
oh, we're still working on that?
Okay.
And
All right.
John, I wanted
There you
to
go.
certainly say
Oh, yeah.
congratulations to the winners, but I'm going to try to get home and see the kids tonight.
Absolutely, you've had a long day.
Thank you for
Thanks for
having
coming
me.
in.
Congratulations.
Thanks for all your support.
Thanks for
Take
coming
care.
in.
It's the longest day of your
Philip,
life,
would
isn't
you
it?
still care to join us up at
Longest
the
day of your
table?
life.
Talk about it? Thank you, Tara. Sure, yeah.
Well, Phyllis, was this your first campaign?
It was.
I know you, you did a lot of handouts, you did the robocalls, you were out and about, and your wife was out and about, so you did a lot of things right. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think I did all I could do, but didn't go my way.
yeah, well, I know Carl knows a lot of people in town, and has been around for probably since the day after he was born, which was a long time ago. So I think that's what you were up against, a guy that everybody has seen the name before. So it's, it was a, I think it would have been a tough race for you. But like I said, I think you did a lot of things right. Certainly you had the energy.
Definitely.
I mean,
Well, the odds that you were facing, and to get 500 votes, you should be proud of yourself. You should really take to heart that, you did a good job getting 500 votes, given the circumstances you're under. I mean, Carl's lived in town, like Terry said, he's lived in town his whole life, and he knows just about everybody in town. It's probably their babysitters, half of them. So you're up, that's kind of, in a town like this, that's tough to run against, and to get almost 500 votes, that's a really good job.
Yeah, and I can speak from
Be proud of
experience,
that.
having run myself in last. I finished last about 3 years ago, and out of 5. But, it's not easy running down line the first time around. I think now that people are getting to know you next year, I just hope you keep active, Sister, I remember when we interviewed you on TV and what your background is, and I think you're the type of person that we want to see actively involved in
I'll
government.
be at work tomorrow saving the town money. So,
Well,
That's a good thing.
that's good, Phil, and I just want to congratulate you for stepping up and getting out there and getting involved in town. We were talking about this earlier, just having the fact that we had a race going on for the seat is great. And, I think running a campaign, whether it's at the local, state, or federal level, can be very taxing. And we did mention your wife a few minutes ago, and I think it's important to mention that she is here in the audience tonight. And, every good candidate needs a good partner behind them. So I think it's important to acknowledge that as well. And, as we're talking about races and such. But, you and Carl shared actually a lot of similar concerns about what was going on in town. I just wanted to find out a little bit more about some of the issues that you ran on and some of the issues that you may want to continue to be active in going forward.
Sure. So, I mean, I think everybody that ran was their first priority is concerned about having generating more commercial business in town and generating that revenue and trying to alleviate some of the burden off the backs of the residents. Certainly, schools are a top priority for me. I got 2 kids who depend on a good education to have a good future. So those are top things. I work as the energy manager for the town, and I work directly for the director of public facilities. So I see the infrastructure problems every day, and knowing that we need to maintain our investment in those things so that we're being as fiscally sound with our investments as we can be. And like Carl, I mean, I have a background in environmental management, so things like conservation, open space are concerns of mine too. But if you have to prioritize things, everything starts with the money. So those are certainly, I mean, on the board or not, those will be things I'm concerned about, and continue to try and be active in helping the town steer in those directions.
Well, there's next year. And
I
so,
think Carl's going to fix everything in a year, so we'll be all set.
well, good luck on that one.
We're never all set, we're never all set.
There's always, I've lived in the town over 40 years, and you lived here even longer. There's always something.
Yeah.
There's always something, there's always some issue. And, that was true when the population was probably half of what it was today.
Right.
I think when I moved here 40 years ago, what was it, maybe 8,000 people lived in Ashland?
Roughly.
Yeah, and now there's 17,000, maybe more. And the issues are even bigger. And so there's always something, and there'll always be work for, somebody that's willing to meet and conquer the challenge.
I mean, I'm still in the sustainability committee, so, I mean, nothing's gonna change for my involvement in the town, so.
Yeah.
Phil, I'm sorry.
No, go.
Phil, while we have you here, you mentioned that you do have 2 young kids in Ashland Public Schools, and,
Well, one.
one, I'm sorry, one, but you got one on the
One's
way.
still in the cradle.
Independent educated, the second one.
Right.
They'll both be driving.
Right. It goes by fast.
One has already driven a golf cart. but
Oh, wow.
That's another story.
Yeah, we can get into that later, but
Probably don't want to discuss that tonight.
probably not on TV. But I wanted to ask you, we were talking a little bit earlier about the overall turnout and how disappointing it was. And I know for a fact, just listening to some of your talks that you've given around town, that you're very concerned about actively engaging some of the younger families in the process. And I wanted to find out if you had any ideas or opinions on how to get folks that are maybe younger or even relatively new to town involved in some of the process and getting them out there, not just voting, but getting involved.
Yeah, so I think, what a couple people have said to me at this table is that, that I guess 500 or a little bit less than 500 is a good number your first time out. I think I've worked hard to get people involved using social media and those type of platforms and the way that's where people are at in my age demographic. So I think I was able to reach people. How to get them engaged? I don't know. I think they have to have a little more skin in the game. There was a big email chain going around in the wintertime about people being concerned about the school budget, and like 700 people signed on to that. They're willing to forward an email, but why can't they take the 10 minutes to come and vote? And maybe most of them did, I don't know, but I doubt that all 700 of them came out and voted.
No.
So,
Sure. No, I think
so-
that's a safe assumption.
yeah, so I've done everything I can to tell them, what's on the line and my stance on things or whatever, but, not 10, 11% is pretty anemic for.
But it's better than the 2% last year.
Yeah, I mean.
True.
It's better than, and I said this at the town meeting, sure, like, we had 130 in November, we had 300, that's progress, but it's certainly not where you wanna be. And,
Sure.
Well, I'm grateful for the opportunity to have met you and got to know you a little bit better and your lovely wife, and you guys are great for the community. Just repeat the common theme. Let's be candid. Nobody likes to lose an election. You put a lot of time and effort into this. But you know what? You're doing a lot of good things for the town. I hope you stay engaged. You bring a good perspective to the town. You've decided to raise your family here. You work for the town. I think you're going to bring a lot of good value. And I would, go home tonight and relax and wake up tomorrow and still try to make a difference in the town. And, to Terry's point, there is an election 1 year from today, hopefully. And, I'd like to see that name on the ballot again. Because you've done well and you've got a lot to be proud of.
So I gotta talk to my campaign manager and see if I'm allowed to.
Maybe we can convince her to run then.
She can run.
She can run, yeah.
What do you say, Aaron? We could make some news right now.
Well, thanks for joining us. I think it's been wonderful to have Joe and John be able to join us a little bit. We're going to kind of, reshuffle the chairs, and hopefully, I know we have the selectman candidates coming down.
Yeah.
Joe, any parting shots?
I'd just like to say, you ran a great campaign,
Thank you.
and I think that all the selectmen candidates ran an awesome campaign. And again, it's the apathy of getting the voters out there. I mean, people suggested, oh, maybe we should change the voting date, do it on a Saturday. Town meeting, the same thing, we talk about changing the date to town meeting. But again, family is so important within this community, that there are so many other obligations that people have to go to, especially on weekends. Kids have sport programs
Sure, yeah.
or other academia things that happen. So it's kind of hard to find a date that's going to be beneficial for everybody as a whole. I talked and made a suggestion that maybe we should look into a representative town meeting.
I've been a big proponent of that
And
for years.
I just threw it out there. It's not something that but I've seen other towns that have similar apathy issues, and they've changed their ways.
Maybe a complete form of government change. We have a mayor and a town council. That'll get people out to vote.
Wow.
Very well might.
Because
very
what we
well.
have
Yeah.
is we have a type of government where town meeting really controls most of it.
And it's become
And
a
you have
political action committee.
265 people that showed up at town meeting that make the major decisions that govern this entire town for a whole year.
Yep, right.
And and if you watch them, you can
And
see
it-
how
and
it can
it's-
become very frustrating at times.
Well, it's true, but at the same time, we have a large number of younger families, and getting coverage, for the babysitting and all that can be challenging, especially on a Wednesday
Right,
night.
and we talked about, having babysitting services and doing the things so that more people can get here. That was definitely discussed. But again, it's getting the people to come and do it.
The one comment I'll make is, my first election was 1998, and the more things change, the more things stay the same. I mean, now there's more technology, there's social media, and we didn't have that back then.
Right.
I was the first person to have a website on their sign, and everybody's like, what's that? That was like in the year 2000 or something like that. And it just comes down to, engagement, involvement in busy lives. And we gotta find a way to get the town a little bit more engaged in the voting process. We need to kind of figure out how to tackle all that. And that's not gonna be easy.
No.
Because we've had the same problem for eons.
Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you all for coming, and Mr. Kerwin, if I could ask you a favor as we reshuffle the deck here, if you could go downstairs and invite the candidates to come upstairs and invite you back. Philip, it's been a pleasure and honor. Best of luck to
Thank
you.
you. Thank you for trying.
Thank you. Mr. Mignani, it's always a pleasure to have you.
It's my
Always.
pleasure to be here. Thank you. And it's nice meeting you. I haven't met you before.
Good to meet you, too.
And one thing I want to do is I want to bring up a dear friend of our show, All Politics is Local, and a fan favorite of everybody in Ashland, Roberta Suleman, who moderated the selectmen debate. So I want to kind of get her perspective on everything that's going on.
Sit right here.
Roberta, always a pleasure to see you.
It's great to see you. Good to see you again, Makita.
Good to see you, too.
So you know the results.
Uh-huh.
You moderated the selectmen debate. Real quick, what do you think?
Well,
Surprised, intrigued, with the way you thought it was going to go?
yeah, it did go the way I thought it was going to go.
Yeah.
I wasn't surprised by the results. And I just want to address the issue of the turnout that everybody's been
Please.
talking about, because I agree with Makita, and I agree with Mark, and I agree with Phil that people don't become more engaged by in volunteering or in voting if they feel shamed and chastised.
Right.
Absolutely.
They need to feel appreciated, and they need to feel like they're useful, and they need to feel like their time is valuable, makes a difference, and they need to have skin in the game. All of those things need to be true. And I think that one of the things we need to do better is to make people feel more appreciated and make their contributions more valuable. People spend eons of hours and time and effort and energy on a committee that either doesn't move anywhere, or whose report is put aside, or whose results, recommendations are ignored. Why would they spend time? And I just think that the focus, we're asking the wrong questions. The focus on not having enough people come out is keeping us from asking the important question of how do we engage more people? How do we make it important enough for them? How is it going to rise to the top? How do we do a better job in town government of making their contributions matter and showing appreciation for them?
You know, you bring up such a good point, Roberta, and you often do, and that's why I always enjoy speaking with you, because you learn so much from you. You know, and I didn't always do a good job of it when I was chairman of the Board of Selectmen. I was conscious of it, but there were times where, okay, we got to move along and we got to do it and stuff. And, you know, even to the point, you know, even John, you know, he didn't get recognized for his years of service. And a lot of people, and you are certainly one of them. I mean, the hours that I spent working with you side by side on Warren Woods, you got to get credit for it because you didn't get paid for it. There were some tense nights, as we all know, and there were tense nights, one of the nights when you didn't sleep, but then you still had to get up and go to work the next day, and because you were passionate. And if you're going to be on a committee, right, wrong, indifferent, agree or disagree, there needs to be a level of appreciation. And I think you've highlighted a very big point in town. You don't always have to agree with everybody, but you always do have to be respectful. And
I totally agree. I mean, in my 9 to 5 or 9 to 9 job, whatever, is running a volunteer program.
Sure.
Okay, yep,
And that's what you have to do, or you just don't get people. Why would they
right.
volunteer if they're going to feel abused?
I think the other interesting point that you brought up is, you know, when people volunteer, and I've volunteered here and there, you know, recognition is very important. I agree with John on that. But also, people need to be, you know, clear about outcomes too. If they are working, you know, X number of hours on a project and they make recommendations and absolutely nothing, or rather, you know, if they're not sure like where that's going, or how that's going to be used, I think that needs to be clear to people when they're working on the project, because if you do that, you know, that's how you get volunteer burnout, that's how you get disinterest, and then, you know, and then negativity starts. So I thought that was a very good point that you brought up.
I mean, recognition doesn't always have to be a plaque. Those are nice,
Right.
but a thank you,
Yeah,
you know, sometimes goes a long way too. You know, a very simple thank you, because not everybody's volunteering for credit for what happens. They just want to make sure something good happens and have somebody notice and say thank you.
exactly.
Yeah, I think most people volunteer to accomplish something good for the town, you know, good for the future of their families. So sometimes people volunteer for an agenda, but quite often that agenda is the right thing. And I know that we could rummage around town hall here and find studies and work done by a lot of very dedicated and intelligent people that are collecting dust, and money was spent and things just, whatever reason, nobody reads the report maybe other than look it through a time or two.
And I would just like,
And to me, that's the biggest insult to someone who's
Yeah, I
volunteered
agree.
their energies.
I agree. I mean, I'd like to change the focus from, why aren't there more people at town meeting? Why didn't more people vote? Why don't more people volunteer? To, you know, how do we make it important enough in their lives and rewarding enough and meaningful enough that they will? Because I don't, you know, I think that the negative focus is just going to drive people further away.
The other piece is too, you know, just talking about engagement. I think it's important for people to be clear on, you know, what they're engaging for. Volunteering aside, you know, what those issues are and how those issues are really going to directly impact their day to day. As John said earlier, you know, nothing illustrates that like local government. But there's a lot of confusion about, you know, how. Okay, so there's a question. I'm not really sure what yes or no means. Blah blah blah. You know, maybe, you know, better communication, better consistent communication might help with engagement as well, because it's about relevancy. It's about, you know, how does this impact me?
I think that the town manager and assistant town manager have tried a lot of new things to try to get more information out to people, and I think that that's great. I think that when I first started going to town meeting, I didn't understand any of this. I didn't know what was going on. I wasn't on a committee. Wasn't following it. I felt like I was just, you know, starting in the middle, and you are. And I think part of the obligation of citizen participation is to be well-informed.
Yes.
You know, you can ask questions at town meeting to get more information, but it shouldn't be a time where, you know, time is wasted with personal stuff.
Right, right.
You know, because that also drives people away. But I was
It
thrilled
does.
to see 300 people at town meeting.
Yeah, it was nice.
I know when I lived here, 30 years ago and more, there would be times where we wouldn't get a quorum of 100.
At
And
town
then
meeting.
they lowered,
I remember
they lowered the quorum.
5.
5 or something like that. And
Yeah.
there were times where they were literally calling up people, come to town meetings so they could conduct a town meeting. Because if the town meeting doesn't happen, guess what? The budget's not approved. And it's a disaster. So,
I'm just gonna, as it's about 20 minutes of 9 on election night, Tuesday, May 19th. Candidly, we're stalling for time. Mr. DeSoni, can you please help us? Can you go downstairs and see if any of the candidates are downstairs and encourage them to come up and we would be very appreciative of that.
You want the command performance?
There you go. Thank you. Mark DeSoni, a great volunteer in the town of Ashland.
yes, he is actually.
So you said the election kind of went the way you thought it was going to go. You do a wonderful job moderating the selectmen debates the last few years. I mean, what were your thoughts going into, this morning?
Well, I think it was unavoidable, but I think it was unfortunate that Paul Shastany couldn't be at the debate.
Was that an FBI training course in
Yeah,
Austin, Texas? Yep.
it's always unfortunate. It's happened before when a candidate had a prior commitment that couldn't be changed, and it's always unfortunate when that happens, because I think it robs the candidate of an opportunity, and it also robs the voters of an opportunity, to see how someone would interact with the other candidates and answer questions. So based on that, I thought he was at a disadvantage,
Yep.
going into the race, and so I expected, the other three folks to
To talk a little bit about that.
top off.
Paul Shastany's worked in town for a long time. His wife worked up at the middle school for many, many years. And, a nice thing about town elections, I didn't really know Philip Williams all that well before this town election. Paul Shastany was a police officer in Framingham for many, many years. And got to know his wife because my kids went to the schools and everything. But, as I got to meet Paul Shastany during, get to know him a little bit better, and our paths crossed a little bit. Fascinating man. Got a lot to offer to the town. Once again, you're much like Philip, wasn't successful. I hope that Mr. Shastany sticks in it and tries again next year.
Yeah, what strikes me about Paul Shastany is he just brings a lot of leadership.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, in an election like this, where there's not a lot of, we talked about it, not a lot of attention, that gets lost in all of that. And, I hope he keeps at it. There's always, he'd always run again next year.
Well, I guess he did a big turnaround in Stoughton where he's the chief of police.
Yeah.
He's
He had a lot of problems over
Yeah,
there.
and I guess he's
Now, do
turned
we have
it around considerably.
anybody downstairs? You wanna-
I believe all our candidates are at their respective parties,
Okay.
celebrating the end of a long and arduous election season, where they were don't forget, they were sticking their signs in the snow at the beginning of this.
That's true, they were.
And they basically had a winter up until about 3 days ago when we had summer. Now we got a spring.
So, Roberta had the chance to do it. Makita, you had a chance to interview all the selectmen candidates. You surprised by the results tonight? Your perspective on a little bit of everything?
Well, honestly, I have to echo Roberta's observations. I think it happened probably the way a lot of folks thought it was going to happen. I thought it was fantastic that most of the candidates had a chance to sit down and come on my show, Policy Beast, and really do an in-depth sort of interview situation. I kind of hope that people who didn't make it out to the candidate forums had a chance to watch something on cable, and of course on All Politics Local, you guys had folks on too. I think it's just, that's part of that outreach effort, trying to inform the community about, who's stepping up to try to.
And I think it was great you guys did those shows, because
Yeah.
that was another opportunity in addition to watching
Yeah,
the
and,
debate.
kudos to you. Those programs were wonderfully done, well-produced. as well.
Camera on this young man?
Yes,
Camera on this young man.
I owe everything to my wonderful producer.
Well produced, and I thought they added a lot of value to the
Mr.
elections, and
Miles.
I hope that we can continue those, going forward. And you could be a driving force in getting people more involved with that type of platform, I think.
Yeah, because issues change weekly here.
They do, and, again, I think, I think everybody around this table, in our way, we try to keep the community engaged, and I think we need to be even more creative about how we bring people into the process and educate people about being involved in town, so.
Well, let's do a quick recap, because if people are waiting for results and we're not announcing them, we do have a couple more voter results coming in that Tara Ward's going to bring up. But just to recap real quick, Adam Schuster, I don't think any surprise, has been reelected as our town moderator, receiving a majority of those votes. The selectman seats for the 3 years, Yolanda Greaves, current chairperson of the Board of Selectmen, was reelected. And Rob Scheer was the majority vote getter for the 3-year seat. So Yolanda Greaves and Robert Scheer are our new selectmen. And Carl Hackinson defeated Philip Williams for the 1-year seat. Carl got 709 votes and Philip Williams 409. Still waiting for the official votes on assessor, school committee, and Board of Health, and some of the other boards in town, library trustee and everything like that.
Those are all academic.
Yeah, I think the thing that was a little surprising was 471 blanks for the selectmen's, the 3-year seats.
Could mean one of two things, right?
Well, it's none of the above, or
Bullet voting.
or bullet. In other words,
Voting for just one
people
person.
voted for just one candidate. I was a little surprised that Yolanda didn't do a little better, given that she's an incumbent. Although in one sense, Rob Scheer has been on the selectmen board before. His wife, Marcia, is just leaving the school board, so I'm sure they were able to garner a lot of votes.
Well, it's not unusual for an incumbent selectman to come in second. It's not unusual.
They win 90%
It's been
of the time.
historical.
That's
It's been historical in town.
I mean, this is a town, Ashland has a track record of voting out incumbents more than probably any other town around. I've seen a lot of incumbents lose in Ashland.
It's probably those, 9,000 people that didn't show up. They don't like the selectmen or the incumbents.
I think, but Rob's going to add some value to the committee. Rob was a younger selectman, not that Rob's old now, but when 17 years ago when he first became a selectman, he's matured.
More experience, sure.
I personally find him to be a class act gentleman.
Nice man, yes.
He's a
yeah,
very
good
nice
guy.
man. He's a wealth of knowledge. I think he'll bring not just it's no way indicative of anybody else, but I think he'll bring some maturity to the board. He'll bring some professionalism to the board.
Some history.
And some history. Yep. And the most valuable asset I think you can bring to a board of selectmen, if I knew then what I know now, I would do things a lot differently.
You wouldn't run.
Yeah, John, you wouldn't run, yeah.
You know something, I've said this a million times. When you're on the Board of Selectmen, you're the dumbest person in town. The day you get off, all of a sudden you're the sage of wisdom. It's unbelievable.
So maybe the people on the Board of Selectmen should only run every other term.
There you go. Problem solved.
Take a 3-year break, or at least a year.
I remember my first meeting.
Well, it's
They went over our sewer system.
I think it's important, it does take you time to learn the system, which is why I've always been against term limits myself, because in any position, because it takes, X number of years to develop the skills, and then as time goes on, become a leader in the elected body, it takes additional time. And I just think that, hopefully the folks that are elected today, and we're fortunate that Rob has a background, will do well. I think they will. Kyle, of course, about being a first-term selectman, is very familiar with town government. He's very active. He's been actively involved as a volunteer in many different projects around town. And I know he's going to be just fine, too. So I think by and large, the town, the folks that did vote today did a good job. And as with Paul Shastny, I do hope, too, that he stays active in town.
You knew Paul from him
Yeah, I know.
era and everything.
Yeah. And he's a good fellow, and hopefully he'll stay involved. There are a lot of opportunities.
You know, a lot of people probably who voted today don't know, and this will probably get a chuckle out of John. You know, I was joking with Yolanda at the end of last town meeting, and she asked me, would I ever run for the Board of Selectmen? And I said, well, you know, the only reason I ever did it was for the money. And, she laughed, and, the public, selectmen don't get paid. School committee, they don't get paid. And you talk about truly being a true volunteer to the town. I used to spend 40 hours a week being a selectman, probably. And I know a lot of the school committee does that, if not more. So it is true, community involvement. And to John's point, you really are dumb when you're in the seat, but, it's a lot of work.
Perception.
It's a lot of work.
It's a 24/7 job because no matter where you are or what you're doing, you're representing the town.
Mhm.
Even if you just happen to be walking through the Natick Mall shopping, you're still representing the town.
And the social media piece has added a lot to it.
Oh, yeah, everything.
Back when the Metro West Daily News allowed those blogs that thankfully they took down because somebody sued them. Those were horrific, the stuff you see still up on Facebook and stuff like that. It can be grading, it goes
No,
back to your point, appreciation and stuff like that. So, kudos to anybody who decided to run.
Can we talk about something
Absolutely.
important today, too, that's happened today?
What's that?
How Bob Kraft caved into the NFL.
I think he took one for his star player. That's the way I saw it.
I think we're gonna find out the truth in about 3 weeks. That's what I think we're
Or
gonna.
5 years.
Well,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
yeah, I think I'm with you, Terry.
Yeah. He's gonna write his memoirs.
I know, it's the
Exactly.
only thing they're talking about today.
There could be other forces at work too. You just have no idea.
Yeah.
It was like nothing else went on today when I turned the news on the radio.
But if Brady is vindicated, which I think is Bob Kraft's ultimate goal, Bob Kraft's going to be content with that. He is one of 32 owners, so he has to take one for the league, and his true goal, I think, is to vindicate.
He's trading 2 draft picks for 4 games at Brady.
Yeah, yeah.
$1 million fine. But as a fan, I just, sometimes would like to see him fight the good fight, but I understand why he didn't.
But after taxes, it's only 600 million.
Right.
600,000.
And I'm sure they'll find a way to write that away,
Well,
too.
Massachusetts gets through with this, it might be worth about 300,000.
Well, nobody downstairs, Mark?
No, but you begin results in about 5 minutes.
Okay, we're going to get the results in 5 minutes.
That.
I
think,
do you want to
you know,
recap maybe the results by precinct, maybe a little
I
bit?
would, but I don't have my reading
Oh, yeah.
glasses. So,
And my wife says I need them, so
I
this
got
will be a
mine.
challenge. Yeah, well, Peter, why don't you do
Sure.
it? Yeah.
Then he takes his glasses off.
I should have done that.
One-year
thinking.
term, Adam Schuster, Precinct 1, he received 190 votes. Precinct 2, 234. Precinct 3, 166. That was Precinct 3. Precinct 4, 110. Precinct 5, 196, for a total of 896 out of 1,206 ballots. They're, for selectmen for 3 years, Yolanda agrees, received Precinct 1, 154 votes, Precinct 2, 179, Precinct 3, 114, Precinct 4, 96, Precinct 5, 148, for a total of 691. Rob Scheer received in Precinct 1, 157, Precinct 2, 215, Precinct 3, 153, Precinct 4, 99, Precinct 5, 168, for a total of 792. Paul Shastney received Precinct 1, 78 votes, Precinct 2, 132 votes, Precinct 3, 83 votes, Precinct 4, 64 votes, Precinct 5, 96 votes, for a total of 453 votes. So as we said earlier, Rob Scheer topped the ticket at the ballot 792 votes, Yolanda had 691, and Paul had 453. For the one-year term of the selectmen, the unexpired term, Carl Hagerson had 145 in the Precinct 1, 167, Precinct 2, 127, Precinct 3, 92 in Precinct 4, 178, Precinct 5, for a total of 709. And Phil Williams had 83, and Precinct 1, 134, Precinct 2, 67, Precinct 3, 49 in Precinct 4, 76 in Precinct 5, for a total of 409. And for any of you who are over the age of 55, you remember the song, She's Real Fine, My 409?
Sure.
You remember that one?
You're over 55?
What?
Beach Boys.
The Beach Boys.
Beach
So,
Boys, absolutely.
yeah.
I'm not over 55.
We'll hit the magic number there. And
We're waiting for the results for the others.
Yeah, and,
There's a bunch of write-ins, I guess.
I want to delve in a little bit to what Terry's point was. The blanks on the selectmen race are very intriguing to me.
Well, you got to remember, too, there's a couple of things. When you look at the selectmen's race, especially for the 3-year seat, every voter has 2 votes.
Right.
So the percentages are actually a little bit lower.
Yep.
Right?
Well, I think most of that is people chose to vote for one person,
Yeah.
not 2. Now, I think that's mostly intentional, but there might be a couple where it isn't. I think there's only 1 out of the 3 that is going to win.
And some people only want to vote for 1 and feel they have to vote for 2. And they just
Yeah.
throw.
Well, we have a little pause here too. I know that when we started the show, some of you probably saw me eating here. That's because I hadn't had anything to eat tonight, and I got 2 text messages about it.
He did share one of his cookies with
Yeah,
me, so.
so I had-
I had a cookie.
really hungry. That's why I brought in a couple cookies to have, because I haven't been home yet today. I've been pretty busy. In case anyone else was
called
wondering,
drive-through.
those 2 of my colleagues did send me text messages. You're eating. I haven't had anything to eat since lunchtime.
Well, it was a delicious cookie to
It was.
anybody who was interested.
Yeah.
What is it, the
Pepperidge
Pepperidge?
Farm,
Oh, we
chocolate.
can't, can we advertise it? It's Pepperidge Farm?
Double chocolate.
Nantucket.
So, I mean, so tomorrow, a new chapter begins in the history of Ashland. I mean, what are your thoughts, McKinney? I mean,
Well, I think it's, despite our lamentations about turnout, I think it was an interesting race. I do think that the candidates overall did a great job of explaining their positions on the issues, and sometimes it can be a little confusing and a little nebulous for folks, but I think they all did a great job of kind of being clear where they stood on certain things. So, I think, I was just thinking about the blanks on the ballots there. I just wonder if people didn't agreed with one and didn't agree with the other, or just kind of picked and did whatever they did because they did their homework. So maybe the blanks aren't such a bad thing after all. It's just an interesting phenomenon. I think that one thing I didn't know going into this. We got something. We got some results. I think I gotta be quiet.
Okay.
why don't you go up to the podium if you're gonna.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
gonna.
Oh, I get the podium. I reserved the spot for you. All right, I'm doing this by proxy from Tara. She handed it to me out in the hallway. Assessor, 3 years. Bill Brown, 888 votes
All right, Bill.
with 4 write-ins
Congratulations, Bill.
and 314 blanks.
Bill Brown's been a great asset to the town.
Yeah, he's been at this a long time, and he does a lot of other things for the town besides the assessor. There are a lot of little things that Bill's got his fingers into in a positive way.
School committee, 3 years. Kathy Bates up for re-election, 825 votes. Mark Terry, 749 votes with 8 write-ins and 830 blanks.
Really?
Wow.
So a lot of people bulleted, school
I'd
committee.
say those are bullets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see, school committee, unexpired term. Elizabeth M. Emberly, better known as Betsy. Okay, 853 votes, 9 write-ins and 344 blanks.
Congratulations to,
Library trustee, Carol Ambacher, up for re-election, 655 votes. Lorne Bullerwell, 549 votes, 3 write-ins, 864 blanks. Board of Health, Judith Margulies, sounds like the actress, right, Juliana Margulies?
yeah, a little bit.
A little bit, okay. This is a 3-year term. 859 votes for Judith. Codavire Narayana, 690 votes. Did I say that right? I said that right.
He goes by KG, so
KG.
Yeah.
that makes it a little bit easier.
I know, but that's his name. 690 votes, 4 write-ins, 859 blanks.
Wow.
Board of Health, unexpired term. Charlie Legacy, 871 votes, 2 write-ins, 333 blanks. That's actually very good.
Having served but next to Charlie, have nothing but great things to say about Charlie Legassi. Great guy.
All right, and,
Great guy.
there's two more races. First, the 5-year planning board race, Preston Crowe was unopposed for election. He had 867 votes with 41 write-ins and 298 votes. The unexpired term for planning board, that is incomplete right now.
Okay.
That's because there was a write-in there.
There was a write-in, so that
Okay.
the
And so
results are
there's still
incomplete.
Hand counting votes on that
Yep.
one.
Any ETA on that?
No, I do not.
Yeah, that was between Max Geezy and Eric Gimperline.
Yep.
So, and Eric ran a write-in campaign, which is always a challenge to get traction because your name's not on the ballot. You have to give people a sticker and convince them to really go out of their way to vote for you. The only one I can think of right offhand that's won a write-in vote in recent history was Tom Santacandra.
The state rep.
That was
the
for state
primary.
rep, yeah.
Yeah.
Years ago, I worked a congressional race on the North Shore, the 6th District, in a primary, and we had a write-in candidate who won the primary against the fellow who was on the ballot,
Wow.
and that was a
Pretty
congressional
incredible,
district.
Peter.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
He lost the general election, but
But still,
nevertheless, just to win the primary like that,
yeah.
So
it was amazing to watch.
the top vote getter tonight was Bill Brown with 888 votes, is that right?
Let's see.
I think that's accurate, yeah.
See, that's interesting that there are a lot of blanks when there's one candidate. So why wouldn't everybody visit? I don't know, that's odd. It's not like you've got another
Sure.
person to vote for.
But I think some people feel like there's no contest here.
So why bother?
Why
Yeah,
bother?
this person's gonna win
I
anyway,
suppose.
you know?
I can fill that in
that's
for you.
why.
As a citizen, I can fill that in real good for you.
Okay.
Hey, it's Mark Tassoni.
It's not a selectmen's meeting, Mark.
I know, but
A little less formal.
but you got,
Not a public.
hey, okay, not pub, but it's still voters' apathy. And I ran, nobody did except for Tara. I ran an unscientific, unofficial, very unofficial campaign myself, saying I would take all those blanks as my votes. So the voters did the work. They didn't vote, I got all those.
Yeah, in a couple of these races, the blanks actually beat the candidates.
Yeah.
But a lot of times that doesn't really mean much, but
But I still think it's all around, as Roberta stated, that people, well, wait a minute, this guy's gonna get in there no matter what I, so, I don't know, they just don't wanna fill in the little oval or think it doesn't matter.
actually a top
But
vote
every
getter
vote matters.
is Adam,
How many votes?
896.
896, okay.
Every vote matters.
Peter's cookies have resurfaced. So maybe on that note,
Maybe on that note,
yeah.
it might be time to wrap it up
Yeah, you
here.
wanna wrap it up?
I want to thank everyone who tuned in to WACA's live election night coverage. We had a great time. We talked about local issues. We talked about cookies. We talked about engagement. And I think we're all the better for it. John?
Yeah, hey, we're happy that we've got a new Board of Selectmen, we've got a new school committee, new Board of Health, but, once again, the common theme about all politics local. Most important election you're ever gonna vote in is your local election. And not to go out on a negative note, but Ashland, we could have done better, and let's strive to do better next year, okay?
I think that we had good candidates, so, in the races, so I don't want anybody to think that you're saying anything negative about
No.
the candidates. That's certainly not the case.
Thank you, no.
I think anybody that steps up, if you think about, we've got experienced selectmen now. It's not like we have any new guys, in town that aren't inexperienced. Carl's certainly not been on the board before, but he's been around, done a lot around town. So, and, even the people who ran and did not win, still all good people, and I hope they try again in next year or, in a couple of years, whatever. So I think Ashland's fortunate to have people who do run and commit their time.
Oh,
Dave
and
Foster,
money-
the rescue.
money to do this.
Uh-oh. Is this different than the one she gave me 5 minutes ago?
That's the final,
Is this the final?
or well, unofficial final.
Peter, why don't you announce the
Yeah,
final
why
result?
don't we
Peter,
get those
What?
finals?
yeah, why don't you give Peter announce those final results?
Last one down the bottom, which is the same numbers I had, but, oh, they're different.
Okay, for the final result here, in the planning board, the race we're waiting for, Max Geesey had 751 votes, write-ins were 186, so he won. Mr. Geesey won. We congratulate him.
That's it.
Everyone else, we've already previously announced.
yep.
And let me echo what,
Here's your final
the
turnout.
final turnout was 11.9% today of the voters in town. Total votes cast were 1,206 votes.
Yep.
And but I want to echo what Terry was saying too. You know, we have some good candidates who won today. Very well, you know, certainly qualified for the
Yep.
positions, and I'm very optimistic to see that they'll do a good job. And that's it. We just want to say good night.
Well, good night, everybody.
Good
Good night,
night,
Ashland.
and thank you for
you.
watching. That's a wrap.